Welcome to my channel. I'm Elizabeth Liz Machette, and today is astrology forecast for May of 2026 and the Scorpio full moon. And my guest astrologer and friend today is Justin Crockett Elzy. Welcome, Justin. Good to have you back on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back on the show with you again. It's been
I
a
know
while.
time's just clicking by. It's going so
That's
fast this year. May
that's
already.
right. We're already into May. Wow. So
Exactly. So, Justin Crockett Elzy is an archetypal and Jyotish astrologer, teacher, author, and seer. And the best way to contact Justin is through his email at justin.elzy@gmail.com. I'm an astrologer, author, intuitive, and you can reach me through my website at alightpath.com. So, if we're in the month of May, and I took this picture off my deck a couple of days ago. And May is a fixed energy. The modality is fixed about hold, maintain, and endure. And the ruling planet of Taurus is Venus, and the moon is exalted in Taurus. The element is earth, solid, stable. The mantra is I have. And can you share the keywords with us, Justin?
sure. So keywords can be anything dealing with comfort, finance, wealth, or values, because it rules the second house in astrology, which is Taurus, and it represents our values. And then, of course, caution with Taurus energy would be greed, too stubborn, stonewalling, adverse to change. Um, and so that's a little bit of caution there on that.
Okay. And this month we're going to look at the May 1st chart like we always do, but I used the chart for the full moon at 10:23 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time for Seattle. We usually look at the one for midnight as we're going in, but I thought since we're having a full moon on the same day, I'd use the full moon. So the moon phase is full. The sun's at 11 degrees Taurus. The moon's at 11 degrees Scorpio. The ascendant for the west coast of the United States is 22 degrees Cancer, and the midheaven is 27 degrees Pisces. Um, and we're going to talk more about this full moon chart in a few minutes. Is there any comment that you want to make before we move on?
Well, I think it just to let people know that we start the month with a full moon and we end the month with a full moon. There's two full moons this month. And so the beginning one, of course, will be Scorpio, and the last one of the month's Sagittarius, right?
Yes, exactly. So two full moons this month. Thanks for reminding us. So we're going to look at the Sabian symbols for the full moon. And they were channeled in 1925 by Elsie Wheeler and Mark Edmund Jones. And he believed that she was tapping into the ancient mind matrix. There's a symbol for each degree of the zodiac, 360 of them. And they're little sayings that kind of set up a little picture, so to speak. And we're going to start with the sun, and we do 3 degrees, the one leading up to the degree of, and the next degree. So you could say it's a past, present, and future. But why don't you start us out, Justin?
Sure. So with the sun, we start out the month with the sun. The Taurus 10 degrees is a Red Cross nurse, is the concept. The keynote is the compassionate linking of all men. And so, key phrase is consecration to humanity.
And Taurus 11, the degree that the sun is in, a woman watering flowers in her garden. The keynote is development of power of the mind on which ego consciousness is based. Cultivation is the key phrase.
And then what we're leading to here, Taurus 12 degrees, a young couple window shopping. And so the keynote here is the fascination of the youthful ego with the products of its culture. And the key phrase is socialization of desires.
Would you like to sum these 3 up for us, Justin?
Well, Liz, I'm just be curious what you think. I mean, when I see these 3 together in a narrative, right? it seems to be we move from when we move in from the first deacon into the second deacon here, 10 degrees. We move from this compassionate personality, and Taurus 11 really is about anything dealing with cultivation of something that we want to start. Um, Very Taurus like. And then of course the 12 degrees is a caution about what really is what really we should desire, right? And then about the what is the true value of things, and then we have the socialization of desire. So it sort of also again kind of leads back to some of the cautions of Taurus. What do you think of these three?
I like what you said, but I like that the first one starts out with compassionate. So I think we all need to stay compassionate and uh, work on cultivating things in our lives. And like the 12 Taurus, it's like, what do we really need? I would say it's maybe a caution about going and being compulsive, doing compulsive buys. It's like, maybe you don't want to do that at this time right now. It's like,
Right,
"Do I really need it, or can I do without?" Or if you really need it, that's fine. So,
right, right, absolutely.
okay, moving on to the Sabian symbols for the moon. Scorpio 10, a fellowship a fellowship supper reunites old comrades. The keynote, the overtones of human relationships based on a community of work or experiences, and its comradeship is the key phrase.
And then Scorpio 11 degrees is a drowning man is being rescued. And here we have the deep concern of the social group for the safety of individuals. And the key phrase here is humanitarianism.
And then Scorpio 12, an official embassy ball. It's group consciousness as it flowers at the highest level in cultural interchanges between representatives of the elite of the ruling class. And the key phrase is give and take in order to achieve global peace. So,
So, what do you think?
well, it's like working together, that comradeship, and thinking about humanity and being humane. And there is also this give and take that has to occur. So these to me are just clues of areas to stay in that energy or stay in that focus. What would you
Yeah.
say?
No, I would agree with you, and I think that because Taurus is an accumulating energy versus Scorpio is a release energy, right, or death or release energy, letting go. It seems like we've got if you look at the Sabins for the Taurus, they sound a little bit earthbound, right? And material, not only materialistic, but definitely earthbound and earth based. Whereas these seem to be a little bit more from a spiritual perspective. Humanitarianism and working towards with all humanity. And this seems to be a little bit what we talk about when we sometimes talk about Taurus and Scorpio. One's materialism and earthbound, and the other one is spirituality and heavenly, and it's the opposite, the two relationships.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a few planets out of bounds this month, and out of bounds means that a planet exceeds the declination of 23 degrees 27 minutes north or south. And those planets act when they're out of bounds, they kind of act on their own because they're not talking or responding with the sun. They're not in the bounds of the sun. So the moon is out of bounds from May 3rd to the 8th, 17th through the 20th, 31st through June 4th. Mercury's out of bounds May 23rd through June 7th, and Venus is out of bounds from May 6th to June 6th.
Can I?
Anything?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to say. So we're just talking about socialization of desires here, and Venus is going to be out of bounds for almost the whole month. So I think that caution there is really important because people are maybe likely to go a little bit overboard with their desires this month. What do you think?
absolutely. Or, it could be a time to review what your desires are too. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
they could be. out of control, or maybe you're like too quick to like get rid of stuff, and it's like maybe, really think about what you want to get rid of. It's like maybe pack it up in bags and put it in the garage for a few weeks before you get rid of it instead of just taking it directly to the thrift store. I mean, it might need to go directly to the thrift store, but you might want to just make sure.
Right.
So we have several planets changing signs this month. Um, on the 2nd, we have Mercury moving into Taurus. On the 13th, Vesta moves into Aries, and I spelled that wrong, sorry. On the 17th, Mercury moves into Gemini. On the 18th, Mars moves into Taurus, and Venus moves into Cancer. On the 20th, the Sun will move into Gemini, and the 29th, Ceres moves into Gemini also. So several planets going into Gemini there.
Yeah, yeah. And I know we'll cover this a little bit later on another slide, but I thought I'd just point out a couple of things here for the audience. Of course, Mercury ingress into Taurus, going from Aries, this very innovative thinker, impulsive also, or self-assertive thinking, to now it slows down a little bit. Mercury will become a little bit more contemplative and slower, and then it speeds back up again when it gets to Gemini, right? So if you have Mercury in Taurus, this is a great month to reassess and to contemplate, because that's what Mercury in Taurus does. And if you have Mercury in Gemini, it definitely will be your mind will be a little bit more wired than normal. And then, of course, Vesta. I'll let you talk about Vesta. I will just say one thing about Mars. Mars, because I do have Mars in Taurus. Mars in Taurus, again, like Mercury in Taurus, tends to evaluate the value of effort in that. So Mars does slow down a little bit here again. So it's a little bit driven in Aries, slows down in Taurus. And then of course Venus will go from Gemini, which it's in right now, I believe, and that's really sort of beautiful communications, um, a lot of input again with Venus there in Gemini. But as soon as it gets into Cancer, then it becomes much more emotional and sensitive with its affections. Um, but that's all I was going to add. I was going to let you maybe talk about Vesta series if you wanted to.
Sure, because Vesta moving into the first sign of the zodiac, Aries, is quite a different energy from Pisces that it's been in for some time here. So, um, Vesta is the hearth and home and the center of our community. So, you know, maybe getting out in the yard and doing some yard work, getting out in your community and doing some new things, going to some new activities. And then Ceres, um, moving into Gemini. Ceres is about it rules the grains and um, har- uh, are harvesting too. So it's could be making a plan to plant a few things this year, maybe some herbs. I'm thinking about planting a few extra herbs this summer. That's what my plan is, but we'll see.
A little bit of diversity with there with Gemini, right?
Yes. And then planets stationing retrograde or direct this month. We have Pluto stationing retrograde on May 6th. And I will be coming back and doing a show on that in a week or less. So there'll be more to come on that. And we're going to start with the Scorpio full moon at 11 degrees and 20 minutes of Scorpio. And the aspects to the moon are a trine to Hygeia and the North Node. So that makes a grand trine of water. And then square Pluto and Juno, and they are in Aquarius. And then the moon quincunxes Venus and Saturn, making a finger of God or a yod. And so, what would you like what jumps out to you first in this chart?
Well, that was the Grand Trine. I think it jumped out to me because the moon is trining Rahu, the North Node there, um, and that makes this that energy flow faster because Rahu is very ambitious. It's the demon head, and so this could be, you know, that Venus there trining Hygeia and Rahu, um, could really be some really strong emotional energy towards drive and ambition, and that's what that really jumped out to me with. Some caution, I guess, with the Scorpio full moon energy because of that strong grand trine.
Well, and it's interesting that we have Pluto, Juno conjunct, and they are square to the moon, and they are in the seventh house here on the West Coast. So I would say that relationships, there could be some changes or adjustments happening in relationships. Maybe we've outgrown different relationships, or maybe we're going to have new relationships, or try different things and establish a relationship with a group or something that we have in common, whether it's quilting or gardening or, going to a car show.
And I think that is really a kind of a difficult, um, as we know that Pluto being the modern ruler of Scorpio there, and the fact that it's squaring the moon there, this could mean maybe some challenging emotions and relationships right now with that, that are
Yes.
outside our control. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And even conflicting, it's like, maybe I want this relationship, but well, maybe I don't want this relationship. I can't decide, that one minute I want it and the other one's like, well, I don't know that I want it.
Right.
So I would just say be gentle with yourself in relationships at this
Don't
time or
don't
the
be a
next.
stalker. Don't be a stalker.
Right.
Stalker. With
You want to speak
Scorpio.
to that yod?
Well, I'll speak to the quincunxes there, because it's an imbalance. I think the moon, wow, this that moon quincunx Saturn really jumps out to me. That one I'll definitely talk about because very very serious emotions with that, but it may be a little imbalanced where either we're going to be, it may be a little bit darker emotions with that one. And I would say how we can alleviate that quincunx with the moon Saturn is focus more on joy and don't, you know, let go of some of the emotional ties that we have to some things.
Well, that's good advice because that Saturn could be trying to damper down those emotions, but it's like they probably need a good outlet to work through them. So whether that's to, talk to a friend, get some counseling, write it down and burn the paper up or rip it in little pieces, I would really encourage people to work on whatever emotion might come up that maybe's been buried that you didn't even know was there.
Mm-hmm.
So, ready to move on?
Yep.
So from May 1st through the 10th, on the 1st, we have the full moon that we've been talking about in Scorpio, and Mercury is conjunct Chiron. On the 2nd, Mercury enters Taurus. On the 4th, we have Mars is square to Jupiter. On the 5th, Mercury is square to Pluto. And on the 6th, Pluto stations retrograde. Um, what would you like to talk about for the first 10 days of May?
Well, the one that jumps out to me is the Mars squaring Jupiter there. I think that this really Mars is still in that Aries. It's still driven. It's self-initiating, but whenever I've found in my experience that it squares Jupiter, because Jupiter is about growth and expansion, that this could be a time when things don't move as flow as well with our action and our growth. We actually have to step back and reassess possibly the value of certain things, of doing certain things, and we need to make some adjustments now in order to have some growth. And because that's in Cancer, this could be the point when we have a challenge with somewhere in the family, and and so if we're going to take action with anything, we need to make sure that we inform others. Would be a good thing to do, and to check in with others before we take any action, so that we don't we're attentive to others' emotional needs with Jupiter and Cancer.
And I like to focus on, what's happening the first day or 2 of the month, so that Mercury conjunct Chiron will be in Aries, and, it's a good time to talk or write about what comes up. Um, you could do meditation, but, Aries wants movement, so it's like, you could go on a walk and try to work out, let it flow through your body and move through your body. It could be you could punch a pillow. I mean, it could be any number of things. It's like, but don't let it freeze up in your body. It would be my advice is like, try to let it move or let it become in your awareness to work on and start letting it go. Anything else you'd like to talk on?
No, that seems to be good for me. The good for the first week.
Okay, then the 11th through the 20th, the Sun will conjunct Mercury. On the 16th, we have Taurus new moon and Mars conjunct Chiron. Then on the 17th, Mercury enters Gemini. On the 18th, Mars enters Taurus and Venus enters Cancer. And on the 20th, Sun enters Gemini. So, what would you like to talk about with this one?
Well, something interesting, because you took the snapshot for the
12th.
yeah, the 12th, right? And I think it's interesting to note how Venus is right there with that moon.
I forgot to
And
change the date on this chart. Sorry for interrupting, but this is May, and I think it's the 18th because I think I tried to do it because Mercury's in Gemini, Venus is moved. So I was trying to do it for when they ingress.
gotcha.
So it's either the 17th or 18th. Sorry, I forgot to change the date and time on this slide, but go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. I think what's kind of interesting is that Venus is going to catch up to Hygeia there. And I think that's something to kind of pay attention to. It's kind of a hidden thing. Um, Venus being in Cancer, I'm not sure what you feel, but Venus in Cancer is, it expresses itself sensitively. It can be private, but it, uh, Venus it desires those, that good relationship with emotions, with people. And I think that when it hits Hygeia this month or within the next month here, that this may, if a person has something close to those degrees of where Hygeia is at in Cancer, they could encounter some, maybe some emotions are a little bit more up and down, or maybe some issues with a relationship where they have to reevaluate how they are um, feeling or getting emotions from that relationship or not getting emotions from the relationship. So I think that's kind of something just to kind of watch right there with the Venus in Cancer.
And I'm going to talk about that Mars being conjunct Chiron because at the first, I think it was on the second, we had Mercury conjunct Chiron. So Chiron's kind of being like, I call it ringing the bell or awakened. It's like there's something coming up with our wounds. Now, I'm going to say with Mars there, it's really easy to wound somebody possibly. So, I would say be careful what you say because it's hard to take back words because people remember words. So to be working on whatever our wounds are, and most of the time, no matter what, we're never going to heal them 100%. It's like we can heal them and come to a resolution and work on them and release them, but there could be some activation around that coming up for us later on this month.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share on this chart?
Well, yeah, I think it's also kind of important is that Mercury moves into Gemini, it's going to conjunct Uranus, and that's a kind of a wow factor there, because that will. I always think that because Mercury rules Gemini, And when it hits Uranus, it's like it's a much more powerful Mercury. I think Uranus really empowers Mercury. I don't know if you what you think about this, but I've always believed or heard before that Uranus is a higher vibration of Mercury, and so I think this is really sort of a powerhouse there with Mercury conjoining Gemini. Definitely a great time to launch a book, launch something in the collective with communications because of that.
Well, and doing research or getting the information that you are missing, that it's a really good time that you'll find it more easily, possibly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then on May 16th, we have the Taurus new moon at 27 degrees and 29 minutes. And the moon aspects is that it's conjunct the sun, Mercury, Uranus, and Ceres. And I will be coming back with the Astrology Star Sisters doing a show on the new moon in a week and a half or so. So we'll be talking more about this. But, we have this conjunction or this pile up in Taurus. So there's, some strong Taurus energy for this new moon. Do you want to speak anything else about this new moon?
No, not particularly. Not right now. No.
Okay. So we're going to go on to the last part of the month, May 21st through the 31st. On the 21st, we have Venus squared Neptune. The 22nd, Sun conjunct Uranus. On the 23rd, Venus is quincunx Pluto. And on the 25th, we have Mars square Pluto. The 28th, Venus is square Saturn. And on the 31st, we have the Sagittarius full moon. So jump in wherever you'd like.
Well, I'm gonna go with. I'll start with Mars. I always like Mars. Mars squares Pluto. Um, that being that I think that'll be really because that's of course a Taurus Aquarius square. Um, you know what that means to me is because Taurus is going to want to, start to slow down here. I mean, Mars will want to slow down in Taurus and start evaluating some of the action it's taking now. But Pluto is playing this role as the disruptor in Aquarius. And so I think that even though Mars wants to slow down here and start to evaluate any type of action or effort, it just shows that for all of us, uh, that our plans are going to be probably waylaid in some different way that we want because Pluto plays a role that's outside our control as a disruptor. So anything that we're wanting to slow down and put out there as far as effort, we may have some changes that are outside our control that will disrupt our plans right around that time. So just something to be aware of.
Well, and also in this period, we have that Sun conjunct Uranus, so it kind of backs up part of what you were saying with the Mars Pluto, because the Sun conjoining Uranus, it's like you can kind of have some plans, but it's like something disrupts it. And, you could have a better outcome than you even expected, or a delay, or now you really have to change plans and make a new plan.
And then of course that leads us to what Pluto and Venus are doing, because if Pluto is playing this disruptor, that's going to probably affect some of our emotional desires at that point. With Venus almost right on top of Hygeia there, um, there seems to be some emotional feeling about that as well.
Absolutely. Any of these other ones you want to talk about?
Well, I think it also, I know I mentioned Venus is going to hit IJ, but then Venus is going to hit Jupiter as well. And that's really an auspicious, fortunate conjunction coming down the way here pretty quickly within the next month here. When Venus hits Jupiter, this could be very positive time for celebrations, family celebrations, people getting married. What do you think about the Venus Jupiter conjunction?
Well, yeah, it's the two benefics joining together, and so and I think when they join up, they'll still be in Cancer. Maybe they'll be in Leo, but I don't think so, but I'll have to look that up, but that would be in June, so we'll be talking about that next month for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, it helps things be, good. Brings benefits, so I like
Yep.
that. Okay, and we're gonna lastly talk about the Sagittarius full moon on May 31st, and we're using the chart for Seattle. The moon is opposite the sun, trine Saturn and Neptune, Pallas Athena and Juno, and quincunx Mars. So go ahead and jump in.
Well, I think the quincunx Mars, the moon, because the moon in Sagittarius is always looking for brighter mental horizons or brighter horizons, right? And it's when it's in balance with Mars, which doesn't really want to move so quickly in that perspective, we could have some, as we close out May here, we could have some trepidation about, oh, I wonder if I really want to do that this coming month in June. And, so there's going to be some evaluation point with as we step into the month of June about any and some actions that we're probably supposed to make.
Well, thank you for that, and, we will be back probably towards the end of the month talking more about the Sagittarius full moon. So, unless there's anything else you wanna add, we'll go on to the next slide.
Well, I also like that the moon is trying Saturn. So that at the other point is like really um I think that's auspicious. That's driving this situation as we close out the month because they're both in a fire sign. But Saturn it is giving some really good courage and support to that moon, but at the same time, it's a caution to any some obstacles that may rear its head as the moon finishes out here in at the end of the month.
Well, thank you, Justin, for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I wanna thank our audience for joining and those that come back and watch at a later time. And now we have a few slides to finish up. Just oh, I forgot about the moon out of bounds, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go ahead and talk about, that.
Yeah, so the moon out of bounds from May 3rd to the 8th will be in Sagittarius and Capricorn. And so this may mean that, people are a little bit more, as we talk about out of bounds, it's going to be kind of unusual in how it acts. So it could be a little bit more free loving, a little bit more risk taking. And then, of course, as it moves into Capricorn, can display a lot more stoicism than normal and may even take up more action and be a little bit more dominant and controlling at that month. In May 17th to the 20th, so the moon will be in Gemini. Of course, then it'll be overstimulated here. That as it gets into an overdrive position, and so people would have to worry about being not focused and anxiety or too much stimulation. Nervous system can be affected by this as well. And then, of course, as it moves into Cancer, nurturing can and emotions can become erratic or unsteady. So just as a time of as a moon, especially moon when it's in Cancer and out of bounds, you really want to kind of just steady those emotions.
Thank you, and then Justin has some planetary themes for the month for us.
Yes, we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but it's a really good thing just to think about that as Mercury moves into Taurus. This really gives us a chance this month to slow down and do some deeper thinking, contemplative thinking. So we may find as Mercury gets into Taurus and Mars gets into Taurus, we start to slow down and say, I need to think about this first before I take any action. I want to contemplate it. So Mercury in Taurus tends to be a contemplative, steady thinking, good for studying and for coming up with solutions to problems. Venus in Cancer, of course, is going to bring in more emotional and sensitive desires. So it may be a little bit more sensitive in in our affections this month. Mars in Taurus, as we've already said, is conservative and methodical in its effort. And of course, Jupiter's been in Cancer for a while. It means a family focus, however family looks for you, whether it's at work or institutions or family. And then, of course, Saturn in Aries is really this assertive identity characteristic.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And then you have some favorable activities for us.
Yeah, so as we look at the sun this month, the sun goes through 3 lunar mansions. And these lunar mansions this month are Bharani, Kritika, and Rohini. This is out of the Vedic astrology. And Bharani is this energy in this lunar mansion. It's ruled by the god Yama, the god of death. And then Kritika is ruled by Agni, the god of lightning. And Rohini is the nakshatra. It's ruled by the god Brahma, which is one of the creator gods. So we got the god of death and the god of creating, and the one between it is cutting everything, just cutting everything out. So that means that this is really a good time for, again, ending projects, completing projects. Of course, we've got 2 full moons that are capping the month, right? So ending and completing projects. Anything to do with agriculture and fertility rights or cultivation of new projects. Marriage, of course, is a positive thing. Anything doing with sewing, shaving, cutting, purifying, and that can also be abstract, out of your life. Anything, just say, this is the month that I need to cut this off. I'm gonna clean house. And then, of course, it's a good month for finance and trade because of the Taurus. And then any type of construction as well. So this is just a quick, dirty list here of some favorable activities. Anything you would add to that, Liz?
Well, no, I think you did a really good job. I guess what I would say is, since Venus is going to be in Cancer, um, you know, watch your stomach. So, like, don't eat too rich of foods, don't eat too much sugar, maybe not too spicy of foods if you have a sensitive or if you're sensitive to spicy food. So it's just like be conservative in that way instead of overindulgent in that way, because you might have this desire to eat more than you really need.
Right.
Venus is in Cancer. Well, Justin, it's been a
And
pleasure having you.
I'll add one other thing too. Since you're talking about health, with Mars and Taurus, that's also a good time to get massages. And because Taurus being, it does rule the throat, but it also is very connected to our muscle and fascia in the body. And so we tend to find nurses and body workers have a lot of Taurus in their chart. It's a good time to get any type of body work done and massage or acupuncture of that sort.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining me, Justin, and our audience. And we have a few more slides here that we're going to finish up with. So Justin and I both do consultations in person and on Zoom. We have newsletters, YouTube channels, and some social media. We always appreciate you subscribing and liking our stuff. And Justin, go ahead.
Yes. So like Liz, I'm a consulting astrologer, and the best way to get a hold of me is through my email. You can also find me through YouTube at Astrological Yogi is my channel.
And then Justin does a weekly horoscope column for the Port Townsend Leader newspaper, and I believe
Yep.
you can find that online. So
Yes,
check it
sure.
out. He does a great job.
Thanks, Liz.
And then, are you gonna do the new moon outlook again?
Yes, yeah. So we do a new moon. Liz and I do a new moon show that shows up on my channel, and you should be able to find these also on Liz's channel because she copies them over and or saves them onto her playlist as well. So
And then there's lots of shows in the archives and um, a couple of shows each week coming out. So we enjoy you coming back and joining us again. And if you find something interesting, you can go in the archives and watch those also. And I want to thank our sponsor, Astro Peregrine Software, an astrology software for Mac and Windows. and you can find out more information on astroperegrine.com. Well, Justin, this has been great, and I look forward to having you on the show again in the near future.
Yeah,
So,
well, thank you. And you know, we should tell our audience that both of us are going to be at UAC this year, so in Chicago in September, and so that any folks that are watching here that want to meet us will be there at UAC.
yeah, come and say hello. And I'm going to go to NORWAC this year. So if you see this and you see me, come up and say hello and that you've watched the show. I'd really love to hear from you. So we're going to sign off for now, and we'll see you all next time.